Samuel Pierce, the CEO of the tech giant Innovatech Solutions, was a powerful man in every sense of the word. He was a broad, tall man who reminded everyone of a bear large, with a deceptively good-natured expression, but with an unpredictable intelligence simmering just beneath the surface. More than anything, Samuel loved company events. He genuinely believed that corporate parties and team-building retreats forged his employees into a single unstoppable team capable of moving mountains. Before I continue, I'd like to ask you to like this video. Your activity motivates me to create more stories. Thank you. And now enjoy the story. It must be said that Samuel's desire to unite his team was successful, but only to a point. The company was united in cliques. The programmers stuck with the programmers and the accountants and economists had their own circle. But the undisputed center of the office universe was Tiffany, the boss's executive assistant. Threads of influence stretched from every department to her desk, as she was the gatekeeper to the man in charge. It was into this polished, cliquey world that a new cleaner arrived one day. Her name was Chloe, and she was a simple girl, without any hidden agendas or pretense. The group home where she was raised hadn't taught her much about corporate etiquette. So, with a brief nod to the security guard at the entrance, she marched with determined steps straight towards the office with the grand plaque. Samuel Pierce, CEO. "Miss, wait, where are you going?" the guard shouted after her, trying to stop the visitor. "Do you have an appointment?" Chloe didn't stop. She just shook her fiery red hair and called over her shoulder, a phrase that left the poor guard in a state of mild shock. "An appointment? Don't worry, I'm appointing myself." While the security guard was still processing this, she had already pushed open the heavy oak door and practically tumbled into the CEO's office. As is customary for bosses, he was sitting at his desk, eyes glued to his laptop. "Hello. I'm here," Chloe announced cheerfully, staring directly at the CEO with her bright green eyes, as if he had been personally inviting her for weeks and had simply forgotten to roll out the red carpet. Samuel Pierce looked up from his monitor, startled, and stared at his guest. A deep furrow appeared on his wide forehead as he tried to remember when he had ever invited this pixie in worn-out jeans, scuffed sneakers, and a stretched-out pilled sweater. But somewhere in the back of his mind, a second voice whispered the old lesson: "Don't judge a book by its cover." "Remind me, please," Samuel asked politely. "Why were we scheduled to meet?" "I need a job," the redhead declared, her chin held high. A slow smile spread across Samuel's face, as if he'd just won the lottery. "Well, for a job, you don't need to see me. You need to see human resources. It's in the other wing of the building." But the audacious girl didn't even let him finish, interrupting him mid-sentence. "I've already been there. They told me there's nothing for me. But I really need a job. You don't want me to starve to death on the steps of your office, do you?" Samuel was taken aback by her sheer force of will. "And why my office?" He couldn't think of anything else to say. "Well, for starters, because I'm hungry right now." Strangely enough, Samuel liked her directness. He buzzed his assistant. "Tiffany, could you please make a cup of strong, sweet tea and 3 sandwiches for our guest?" "Actually, I'd prefer coffee." "And 6 sandwiches," the pixie corrected him. Samuel gave a gracious nod. "All right, Tiffany. Coffee and 6 sandwiches then." Tiffany said nothing. She wasn't used to contradicting the boss. But the look of pure disdain and arrogance she shot at the disheveled redhead sitting across from her boss spoke volumes. With a contemptuous sniff, Tiffany pivoted on her thin heels and marched out of the office. The redhead didn't miss a beat, immediately launching into her coffee and sandwiches while simultaneously voicing her opinion. "How do you tolerate that? If I ever sniffed like that at Mrs. Gable, our director, I would have gotten a smack on the back of the head." "And who is Mrs. Gable?" Samuel asked, watching with amusement as his guest devoured the food and dialing the head of HR. "She's the director of my group home," Chloe said between bites. "Ah," Samuel joked. "Then I must hire her as my deputy immediately." "Who do you want to hire as your deputy?" came the voice of Ms. Albright, the head of HR, through the phone. "Just kidding, Eleanor," Samuel chuckled. "Tell me, did a young lady come to you today about a job?" Yes, the redhead. And we have absolutely nothing for her. Samuel listened intently to what the HR manager told him, jotted something down on a notepad, and then looked up at Chloe, who had finished every last crumb and was now lounging in the expensive leather chair with a look of utter satisfaction. We have very low employee turnover, he informed her in an official tone. At the moment, we only have one vacancy for a cleaner, and it's a temporary position to cover a maternity leave. Chloe's face lit up. That's perfect for me. Then go back to Ms. Albright and fill out the application. I'll let her know you're coming. And so, Chloe got her first real job. She tried her best, scrubbing, washing, and cleaning with diligence. But there was no one for her to bond with in the close-knit team. Thanks to the efforts of a vengeful Tiffany, everyone behind her back called her the mop rag, because she always wore the same worn-out clothes and never even went to the cafe for lunch. Instead, she would sit in her utility closet, eating a simple sandwich she brought from home. Such greed, Tiffany would exclaim, rolling her perfect eyes and fluttering her fake eyelashes. We get paid so well here. You'd think she could afford a decent lunch. The pay was indeed good. Samuel Pierce was a generous man, but Chloe needed every penny. The truth was, she was supporting her younger sister from the group home, Mia. Chloe was putting everything she had into making sure Mia could study to become a doctor, a dream their own mother once had. Of course, Chloe had her own secret dreams. One of them was a dress displayed in the window of a chic boutique next to their office building, with a price tag that had far too many zeros. Every day, passing by that window, Chloe would stop and admire it. It was an extraordinary dress, a noble shade of sapphire blue, short in the front to reveal the knees, and with a long flowing train in the back. She would imagine herself walking in that dress, head held high like a queen, with everyone staring at her in silent admiration. Oh look, the mop rag is admiring a Versace gown. Who knew she had any taste? A loud, mocking voice shattered her daydream. It was Tiffany, flanked by her usual group of friends. They all erupted in laughter. But the worst part was that the witness to this humiliation was Samuel Pierce himself, who had just walked up to see what his employees were laughing at. For some reason, his opinion was the one that mattered most to Chloe. Tiffany, he suddenly growled, a sharp, bear-like sound he had never used with his assistant before. My office. Now, the rest of you get back to work. Tiffany emerged from the boss's office with red, puffy eyes. She slammed back down at her desk, logged into her computer, and demonstratively began to play solitaire. The incident was soon forgotten as the May holidays approached. Samuel announced to everyone that for the long weekend, he had booked rooms for the entire company at a lakeside lodge for a corporate retreat. A roar of hooray went through the office. Only Chloe stood quietly to the side, sure that a mere cleaner like her wouldn't be included. But Samuel wasn't the type to overlook anyone. As if reading her mind, he turned to her and added specifically for her, Chloe, this invitation includes you too. You are as much a part of this team as anyone else. And if you want to bring a family member, please do. What's wrong, Chloe? Her younger sister Mia asked when Chloe came home looking downcast. The boss booked a trip for everyone for the holiday. That's awesome, Mia exclaimed. So what's the problem? They're not taking you because you're a cleaner. No, Mia, it's the opposite. He personally invited me, but I don't want to go. That snake Tiffany and her friends will be there. I don't have any friends in the office. Chloe, you have to go, Mia said firmly. Out of principle. Ignore them all and just enjoy the sun, the nature, the lake, whatever's there. Chloe thought about it and decided her sister was right. After all, they had seen so little good in their lives since their mother passed away. Mia, why don't you come with me? The boss said we could bring family. No, Chloe, I've already made plans with my friends, Mia said, giving her a hug. On the day of the trip, everyone gathered outside the office with their bags, waiting for the bus. People were joking and laughing. For once, Tiffany wasn't bothering Chloe, only shooting her occasional venomous glares and whispering with her friends. Chloe found a sunny spot on a bench. Ms. Albright from HR sat down next to her, also turning her face to the sun. Soon Samuel Pierce arrived. He got out of his car, but he wasn't alone. He was with a boy of about 5. "That's Leo, the director's son," Ms. Albright confided in Chloe. "He's raising him alone. His wife, a real piece of work, left him for her fitness trainer." "What about the child?" "She left the boy with his father. Said he'd be a burden. On the other hand, he's better off with Samuel. He's a wonderful dad." Chloe's heart ached for Leo. No matter how good a father he had, a child growing up without a mother is still an orphan. She watched as Samuel gave the boy a small toy car, and then turned to give Tiffany some instructions. Tiffany, however, seemed to have completely forgotten about the child, engrossed in очередная with her friends. She didn't even notice as the little boy toddled towards the lawn. There was nothing dangerous about it, of course, except for the stray dog that was sniffing around under a tree. The little boy, letting out a happy shriek of "Doggy!" fearlessly ran towards the animal. The dog tensed up, let out a low, vicious growl, and lunged at the child. In a flash, Chloe was there, scooping the boy into her arms. This clearly didn't please the dog, which, without a second thought, sank its teeth into her leg. Chloe cried out in pain but didn't let go of the child. The dog then started jumping, trying to bite her arm and knock her off her feet. All Chloe could do was scream at the top of her lungs. "Get away! Go on, get out of here!" Help was already running from the office. The men from her company and Samuel Pierce himself. The dog, realizing it was outnumbered, decided it was time to flee. Tucking its tail, it ran off. Samuel reached Chloe and his son, hugging them both tightly. "Thank you, Chloe. Thank you for saving my boy. I don't know how to thank you. You're bleeding everywhere. I'm taking you to the hospital right now." "No, really, it's fine. I'll get your car dirty." "Chloe, get in the car. Now," the boss commanded, dropping all formalities. In the end, the day was ruined. Samuel and Leo went with Chloe to the hospital. The rest of the employees decided that going off to have fun under the circumstances would be the height of disrespect. Tiffany, of course, tried to argue that she wasn't about to show respect to some mop rag. But for once, the majority of the office didn't support her. She had no choice but to accept that her holiday plans would have to change. Chloe's injuries were serious. She needed stitches on her arms and legs, and a series of painful shots. Samuel and Leo visited her often while she was in the hospital. One day, just before she was discharged, the boss brought her a large, beautifully wrapped box. "Chloe, Leo and I wanted to give you a small, modest gift. Please accept this as a token of our admiration for your courage." The boss handed her the package. Chloe unwrapped it and gasped. She covered her face with her hands and began to cry. "Did I offend you, Chloe?" "Yes. I mean, no. Where would I ever wear something like this? I'm just a cleaner." Leo, who had been standing quietly to the side, saw his rescuer crying, walked up to her, hugged her around the neck and whispered, "You're nice. Don't cry. See?" Samuel smiled. "From the mouths of babes, as they say. And as for where to wear it, trust me, an occasion will present itself." On the first day Chloe returned to work after the hospital, that occasion arrived. Tiffany had called in sick that morning, telling Samuel she had the flu before hanging up. The boss stared at his phone, his brows furrowed. "What terrible timing," he muttered. "The biggest negotiation of the year is today." The meeting was an informal one at a restaurant, but it was with investors who could make or break the company's future. He immediately called one of Tiffany's friends who sometimes filled in for her, but she, too, had apparently come down with the same sudden flu. Samuel was pacing his office, a storm brewing in his eyes, when he saw Chloe quietly polishing his office door. A glimmer of hope lit his face. "Chloe, drop those rags. I need your help," he said decisively, taking the cloth from her hand. "Is there something else that needs cleaning?" she asked, surprised. "No, Chloe. I need you to replace Tiffany at the negotiations today." "What? Me? But I don't know anything." "You don't need to know anything specific. Can you hand over papers for a signature? I assure you it's much easier than mopping floors." Samuel said, giving the cleaner a critical look. We'll rehearse everything right now. That blue dress will be perfect. Go home, change, and come back here. But, no buts, Chloe. I'm sure you'll do great. The girl reluctantly agreed. How could she refuse a man like Samuel Pierce? All right, let's try. Just promise you won't get mad if I mess up. But Chloe was worrying for nothing. Samuel was right. Handing over papers was no harder than wielding a mop. At home, Mia helped her with her hair. And when all the preparations were done, a completely different person looked back from the mirror. Chloe, you look like a princess. Mia gasped. Samuel Pierce was pacing his office nervously. The representatives from the investment firm were due any minute, and Chloe was nowhere to be seen. He kept going to the window to check for their car. And here I am. A melodious voice suddenly rang out. Samuel froze in astonishment. Standing before him was a beauty, the likes of which are rarely seen. It took him a considerable effort to compose himself and get back to business, especially since the other participants of the negotiation were already walking into the office. Everything went wonderfully. Chloe didn't mix anything up and behaved with impeccable grace. After the successful negotiations, Samuel drove her home. Getting out of the car, he walked her to her apartment building. As they were saying goodbye, he said, Chloe, what would you think if I offered you a different position? A secretary? No, Chloe. Be my wife. Just like that. Why just like that? I think I've loved you from the very minute you stormed into my office and demanded coffee and 6 sandwiches. The Pierce family is now a happy one. And Leo is happy because he now has a mother with whom no dog is scary. Aunt Mia, he dreamed. Dad promised they'll buy me a little brother soon. That's when we'll really start living. If you enjoyed the story, I hope you won't mind supporting the channel by hitting the like button. Don't forget to also write in the comments what you thought of the story. Your support is very important to us. Thank you and be well.